You're listening to Aaron this Monday evening. Thank you very much for your company tonight. What a beautiful day it's been, hey. Now, when it's sunny, maybe we don't want to be inside playing computer games, but when winter comes, which is about a week away, just to be clear, you will want to. And there has been something really cool that has happened fairly recently. Now, Sumo in Nottingham, they've just released the Texas Chain Saw Massacre. It's a huge online multiplayer game based on the iconic horror franchise of the same name. Now, part of the team who brought this game to life is BAFTA. I love this, mate. It's cool. BAFTA-nominated composer Ross. I don't want to say your second name without saying it wrong. So can I hand it to you to say your second name?
Yeah, it's Tregenza.
There you go.
It's a weird old Cornish name. Like people can have a stab at it. I don't mind if they get it wrong.
Well, I do. So I just wanted to make sure it's right. Especially when I saw the BAFTA nominated. We just got to make sure it's right there. So you went on a wild journey of experimentation and ended up with a soundtrack comprised of handmade horror instruments, scraping metal, vintage synths, and human screams. Now we've just got a couple of bits of noise. I think just to set the scene. No, we'll just make it clear that wasn't yours, right? But this is just to set the scene, because you even sourced the 1970s reel-to-reel to give it an overall retro feel.
That's right.
But what is it you do? Because this sounds really exciting, but really complicated and really confusing at the same time.
So I'm in charge of... Well, I wrote the music for the game, but I'm also the Sumo Nottingham's audio director and was like the lead sound designer on the game. So pretty much the bulk of anything you hear in the game, all those terrifying noises, they're all weird and wonderful things that I found and put together. And as the years went on, they just got more weird and more wonderful. Like there's squealing pigs and stretched screams and me wandering around the house scraping any surface I can find with a salad spoon, and it got weird really quick.
So how does this work then? So to start with that, how long has this game been in process for?
3.5 years we've been working on it. So, and bulk of that in lockdown as well, which was kind of crazy.
So the game, I imagine the music scoring and stuff has to come almost a little bit lagged behind the designing of the game, because there has to be an understanding of the visuals first, or does it come like audio first, then the visuals get put to it?
It's quite common for the soundtrack to be, like you say, like a bit later in the process, but we had a couple sort of luxuries here in that I was the audio director and sound designer, so I was like in the mix every day, playing the game every day for 3.5 years, and also it's an existing franchise. We were replicating the feel and the tone of that original film, so it wasn't like we had to like discover how we wanted it to sound and then layer that on after. We were like, from the beginning we knew what we were aiming for, which was that original film.
So how on earth do you go about this? And I love when I kind of you watch documentaries of filmmaking and stuff, and you hear the noises, and only when you get older or more experienced or whatever in it, you become fully aware that that sound that you're watching is not what you're hearing, if that makes sense. It's something completely different. So what do you then do to get creative and try and put these sounds together? How do you do it?
Well, the original score for the film by the composer Wayne Bell was even for its time super experimental. He used recordings of rattling metal and chains and pigs and stuff like that, because he didn't want it to be like a traditional film score. He wanted it to be very avant-garde and experimental and crazy. So I was following in those very big footsteps, and I knew the history of what he'd done, but I wanted to take what he'd done and then put my own little stamp on it as well, and grow it, because the game is, you play the game for hundreds of hours, so we need a lot of content, a lot of expansion on those original ideas. So it was a case of over time working with our the game's publisher Gunn, and the president of the company Gunn, Wes Keltner, was very, very vocal and very directly involved in what he wanted it to sound like. So me and him worked together, and as time went on, I just got weirder and crazier, and I just started throwing in human screams and distorted pigs, and my cat. One day my cat was just particularly angry about his late dinner, so I recorded him and I put that in the game, and so I've got a pitched down, distorted version of my cat. My mum's fridge one day was making a weird sound, so I was visiting my mum. I was like, wow, your fridge sounds crazy. So I recorded that and I've thrown that into the game. So it's a real case of just, like the original film, just being open-minded and just throwing in anything you can, just be a little experimental.
How do you record these sounds? Because if you're picking up everyday sounds, are you just picking them on your phone and then just playing with them?
Well, that's the thing. The original film is, obviously, it's from the 70s. The recording at the time is very different from recording now. Everything's very clean and pristine these days, but that wasn't the case back then. So I didn't have to be too cautious about the quality of the source material when I was throwing it into the game, because I run everything through like simulations of 1970s reel-to-reel cassette tape and heavy distortion and all this crazy stuff. So you can work with this really sort of guerrilla content that you've just grabbed here and there, and then you throw it in. I mean, when you're distorting and throwing in all these retro effects and stuff like that, you don't have to be that cautious anymore. You can go a little crazy.
How do you stay outside of the game when you're so immersed in creating a game? So you're creating all these sounds, but you're also playing the video game, you're designing it, you run the team that's doing it. It's got to be quite weird to jump into this kind of computer game reality and then have to jump outside of it. There's all this chat of AI and things like that, but it must be a weird transition.
I think the honest answer is I didn't jump out of it. I think the last 3.5 years of my life, I've lived this game. I dream about it every night. I wake up in the morning, like my cat's cuddling me while I'm just having my morning snooze, and I'm like, you know what? I think I could get that chainsaw sounding a bit more authentic. Or maybe I could put some more pigs into that music. So I've lived it and breathed it through the last 3.5 years. But I'm a huge horror nerd. It's been an absolute honor to be involved in it. So it's not been a hardship at all.
It's a good job you are a horror, like, kind of, you're into your horror films, because people that aren't into horror, if they were asked to score this sort of game, they might struggle with it.
It's true. I mean, yeah, it does help because I loved the film already. Like when our studio boss at Sumo Nottingham announced we were doing this, I just hollered like crazy in the studio. I was so excited. But I mean, as a game composer, you need to find something you love about any game that you work on. I mean, I've done like Deathloop and Cyberpunk, things like that, and they're a little different.
Cyberpunk's so good.
Yeah, such a great game. And any game that you work on, you need to find a love for the work that you're doing and something you can bring to it. So this one was just particularly easy for me.
How did you get into scoring video games or doing the audio for it?
So I was just like a musician back in the 90s. I had like a industrial music band like Nine Inch Nails and that kind of thing. I thought I was going to take over the world, and I didn't, obviously. But I always loved video games, and I never put the two things together until I met a guy called Graham Norgate, who's a famous composer for like GoldenEye and Killer Instinct, a lot of very loved games. And he kind of made me realize that there's a career to be had being doing music, but for video games. Like back in late 90s, early 2000s, that wasn't really common knowledge. So I was very lucky to get in at that point. And it's been so cool ever since. I love my job.
I was trying to think. I was just hearing the noises. Honestly, right then, I was in the facilities and the second level of GoldenEye as that door opened and just listening to the sounds of, what an incredible game that was. Yeah. So you're BAFTA nominated.
Yes.
What did you get nominated for?
That was for my music for Deathloop, which was a really successful game from, 2 years ago? So the nominations were last year. It was me and two other composers, Tom Salter and Eric Taliber, that composed the music. It was like a 60s, 70s mysterious kind of soundtrack. So I had to learn to write like psych rock music, like the Doors and things like that. I love that kind of music. It's cool, but I had no knowledge of how to write it. So as a game composer, I think any composer of like film or TV and stuff, if people say like, can you do X, Y, and Z, you just have to say yes and figure it out after.
Yeah, that's the key to life, isn't it? Just keep saying yeah.
Yeah, fake it till you make it.
Are you allowed to say what you're working on now or in the future?
So our priority at the moment is with Texas Chain Saw Massacre. It's live now, and we worked very hard to test it as well as we can, make sure it's solid. But when it goes live, suddenly we've got, like last count, I think it was 5 million. We're probably about 6 million people playing it now. And stuff happens. Like we have to respond to that really quickly and make sure everyone's enjoying the game. So our priority at the moment is just fixing any like crazy stuff that happens and making sure people can keep playing, because they're loving it, but it's our responsibility, to keep it on its feet and keep it feeling nice and pleasant.
It's got to be really difficult doing that. I became a huge Warzone fan during the pandemic.
Oh, cool.
As many people did, and it was a great way to stay in touch with your mates, because you're online with them every night, you're chatting to them, and you're going into battle with them as such. But you'd sometimes have glitches, and then things would change, and it became a bit too intense for me, in fact. But there was WhatsApp groups and stuff where they're going, "Oh, this new update, this has happened." It's got to be really difficult to make sure you guys go, "This is our focus, this is what we want to do," when you've got 5-6 million people telling you what they think you should be doing to the game.
Yeah, it's tricky, but like our publisher, like managing it, and so we get like a flow of information in and stuff, and or like I play it myself every day. Like since it's come out, I've played it every night. I'm playing with my friends and my family and stuff. It's like there's no greater joy than like chasing your niece around with a virtual chainsaw.
Just to be specific on the radio, it's for a game.
Yeah. I'd like to point out that's not a real chainsaw. That's a video game chainsaw.
That's got to be, do you know what? I haven't. I'm gonna get on the download scene. I'm gonna definitely give it a go.
I mean, it's ridiculous because I made literally almost every sound in it, but I still get jump scares of the sounds that I made. Like something will happen and I'll panic and drop the controller.
I love that. So look, if people want to play it at the moment, is it just you can download it on all consoles? And
yeah, it's on Microsoft Game Pass, and it's available on the current generation of consoles and PC and the previous generation as well. So pretty much anything you want to play it on, it's available.
Amazing. You recommend it?
Oh, I love it so much. Like if I didn't make it, I would still be playing it every single day. It's been a joy to make and a joy to play.
Amazing, Ross. Thank you so much for coming in. I tell you what, now I know you do this, and it's you're round the corner from us. Not only that, we realised we've had a beer together as well.
Yeah, we did.
We'll make sure to stay in touch and keep up to date with this game. Thank you for coming in.
No problem at all.